The Be Quiet Pure Bass 500 is the company's first modern take on a compact mid-tower, and it's about time. First impressions, the layout looks great, but the airflow is likely lacking. Let's see how it holds up. Meet Deepcool's Castle 240EX all-in-one liquid cooler, sporting a beautiful yet functional design. Fans are optimized for silent operation and static pressure. The new dual-chamber, three-phase pump ensures strength and reliability. The block's RGB is diffused better than ever, and the logo cap is now removable, customizable, and rotatable. This is honestly my favorite part. And it's all packaged with Deepcool's patented anti-leak tech, which we got to see live in action at Computex 2019. Check out the video description for more details. To start, I'd like to mention price so that you can keep it in the back of your mind while browsing these features. The model you're seeing here, that's white with a tempered glass window, will cost you $90 US. The basic black version without a glass panel will cost $75. And regardless of the model, you'll find two 140mm Pure Wings 2 fans standard. What Be Quiet's done here is shrink an effective Dark Bass 700 chassis into a compact mid-tower format. 7 PCI slots at the rear, a full-width basement, support for up to a 360mm AIO up front, which I think is really nice, dual 120 or 140mm fans up top, and surprisingly, up to a 140mm fan at the rear. I especially like this aspect, seeing as though most mid-towers with similar dimensions manage to only squeeze a 120 back here. Both the right and front panels are fitted by default with sound damping material. Nice. The PSU is slotted from the rear thanks to a dedicated bracket. Nice. The front panel is easily removed and the front I/O stays with the chassis, which means no dangling cables. Nice. 2 top covers are included, though I'm sure you can guess which one I'd prefer. The fact that you have a choice at no additional charge, though, is, yeah, nice. But you won't find rubber grommets anywhere, which I think is not so nice. Instead, Be Quiet kept an indented cutout for the 24-pin and SATA, just a slightly less clean look. You'll also find the Be Quiet logo in this area. It's indented too, but this time so that SATA power and data can be routed discreetly underneath it. I think it's a unique way to show off 2.5-inch SSDs and unique use of otherwise wasted space, so I won't complain. Under the basement, there isn't much to see. We've got sufficient space for a full-length power supply. The hard drive cage can be repositioned for either a 360mm I/O up front or a longer PSU at the rear. And while we're back here, cable management space is decent. Not the best, but definitely not the worst. I've seen much worse than this in a mid-tower. And lastly, front I/O. There is no USB Type-C inclusion. Instead, 2 USB 3 Type-A ports, a microphone jack, a headphone jack, and a power button. Pretty straightforward. So that about sums up hardware support and features. I've got to say, Be Quiet's done a heck of a job with this one in terms of its design, seeing as though this is their first time dabbling in the mid-tower space. It reminds me a lot of the NZXT H500 and Fractal Meshify cases, although, as you'll see shortly, the Meshify C and S2 do a significantly better job in the airflow department. Uh-oh. Be Quiet stuck with the same hole punch side intake setup of previous models, and it's disappointing, for lack of a better word. There are 3 things working against us here: the angle of the intake setup, the area of the intake setup, and the doubled mesh design. This results in CPU temperatures peaking at 87 degrees Celsius, 5 degrees off our best performer, the Meshify S2. And recall that these are fan standardized results. The same 2 fans were used for each of these tests, along with, obviously, the exact same components, fixed 50% fan curves, and a controlled ambient temp. Likewise, the Pure Bass 500 gave us some of the warmest temps at the GPU diode, though we should expect these margins to widen with hotter cards, so you would definitely not want to fit something like a reference 5700 XT into this chassis. But there's one variable I haven't mentioned yet, and that's the swappable top cover. Remember, the CPU temps you saw a bit earlier were recorded with the mesh filter install, the one I thought would do better. Swapping this with the closed-off version, which admittedly looks better in my opinion, results in a 2-degree bump in CPU temps to 89 degrees Celsius at the hottest core. That would make the Pure Bass 500 the hottest case on this chart, likely following the Dark Bass 700's trend from older testing and videos on the channel. So it could have been worse, and Be Quiet avoided a catastrophe, no doubt, with the inclusion of the mesh panel. I'm gonna say it, nice. So what are we left with? Well, I think it's great in nearly every way, except airflow. There are a few things here and there I would change about design, but functionally, that's the one issue I have with this chassis, is airflow. It could definitely be better. But it goes back to the trend we discussed with older Be Quiet cases. The company's fixed on trading high airflow for silence, or close to it. And while this might seem like an ideal switch on paper, the logic doesn't totally add up for me in the real world. By making a case quieter, by sealing it up, you inadvertently make it hotter, which makes your system run louder. At which point, you've defeated the purpose of the closed-off design. We find a happy-ish medium of sorts with the mesh panel in this chassis, but at that point, you might as well open up the entire case. I want to see this chassis with a high airflow front panel, and Be Quiet will have one heck of a case on their hands. But for now, do I recommend it? I mean, yeah, only if you can handle slightly higher temps. I mean, these aren't dangerously high temps, but they're not ideal. Most builds will be fine, but if you're a stickler for airflow, and I don't blame you, there are certainly better options on the market. I'll always be honest with you guys. With that, if the Pure Base 500 suits your fancy, you can find it linked below along with other cases tested here. If you guys like this style video, let me know by giving this one a thumbs up. I appreciate that. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next one. This is Science Studio. Thanks for learning with us.